Hey everyone, this is Raina Carrillo with Purpose and Passion. I'm really excited because for those that knew that I had a show called Straight from the Streets Radio, and it's the same concept, educating, inspiring, teaching awareness, and that's like the main deal of what I feel about my show even currently. So last few years ago, I definitely reached out to a well-known individual in our communities in LA called Alex Alonso, that is the creator of Streetgangscom. And I definitely wanted to have him on my show because everybody knows my background growing up in Inglewood, California. So today we have Alex in the building.
Hi, Raina. So this is a new show for you, right? It's not the same show?
Yes, The Purpose and Passion,
oh,
yes.
Okay. I thought it was the same one from the streets, right? What was that?
No, it changed up. So Straight from the Streets was the original, but when I got to Beverly Hills, I had to kind of change it up.
No doubt. Well, thanks for having me today.
Yes, of course. So I want you to take the viewers through kind of like back down memory lane with you, like where your parents are from and where you were born and raised.
Well, my parents are actually from Puerto Rico. A lot of people don't know that, but I was born in New York City in a Puerto Rican community in housing projects in the Bronx, in a place called McKinley Projects, and lived in various places in New York for the first 11 years of my life. And then through a family breakup, my parents separating, I ended up in Los Angeles, California as an 11-year-old boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you came to California at the age of 11, were there any Puerto Ricans or you were the only Puerto Rican at the time?
There were no Puerto Ricans on the block. It was a Mexican and black block that I lived on. And it was interesting. I was a little homesick when I first got here because, I wish there was footage of me when I was 11, but I remember all the kids making fun of how I spoke because I had, I guess, a East Coast New York accent, but I don't know how it sounded because I was 11 and no one was recording us back then.
Yes.
So I used to get made fun of every day. I'm like, yo, Pops, man, they're talking about the way I talk every day. They're making fun of the way I talk. But eventually, I started talking like everybody in LA started talking.
Yes.
So I caught on pretty quickly. And I guess I went to a middle school here called John Burroughs. We called it junior high back then.
That's what I say every time I say. They be like Monroe Middle School. I was like, no, we call it Monroe Junior High.
Yeah, they started calling the junior highs middle school in '93, but I hit middle school in '82, junior high school, and that's when I just really started making friends in the 7th grade. I got to LA in the 6th grade, but in the 7th grade at junior high is really when I started to make some friends.
Yes. So tell, my husband's Puerto Rican, so I love the Puerto Rican food and the culture and everything. Yeah. So what is one thing that you love about being Puerto Rican?
There's not one thing. I love everything about what my parents instilled in me. I mean, I love the food. One of my favorite dishes is a dish made with plátanos or plantain. It's called mofongo. And it's shaped like a dome because it's made in a bowl and you flip it over and it's got garlic and onions.
Wow.
And then, of course, everyone knows the empanadas. That used to be my favorite when I was little. I was little. But, rice and beans is a main staple of most of our dishes. And I remember being 7, 8, and 9 years old saying, Mommy, are we eating rice and beans again? I'm getting sick and tired of rice and beans. But today, as an adult, man, I love it. I love the smell. Whenever I go back to PR, I can't get enough, and I haven't been there since COVID. I was there during hurricanes of 2017 and I was there in 2018. And, it was pretty devastating. We had 2 major hurricanes that hit us in 1 month. We had Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Irma. And I was there for Irma. But when we were looking at the news about Hurricane Maria's coming, I was with my mom. I said, Mom, we're not going to stay here for this one.
Yeah.
This one looks like it's going to be a big one. And it turned out to pretty much level the whole island for 6 months. 6 months. So, yeah. Other than the hurricanes, I love everything about Puerto Rico.
Yes. My husband always talks about the Coqui, El Coqui.
El Coqui.
Yeah. And he was saying it's a frog that makes us like a unique noise. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I believe the frog used to only be found in Puerto Rico, but somebody took a frog from Puerto Rico and took it to Hawaii because Hawaii has a similar climate. Yes. And now Hawaii has El Coqui. But yeah, when I was little, El Coqui was everywhere on the island. I mean, you could see them jumping. You could just, there would be in big groups. And my father told me when he was little, there was so much coqui that they would come through the pipes of the sink.
Wow.
Yeah, but now, like, because of all the pollution, there's a lot of companies, non-Puerto Rican companies that have been polluting the island, polluting the water, polluting the air. You don't find them or hear them as much in San Juan, which is the main city.
Yes.
But where my family is in a town called Humacao, which is more kind of a country farm agriculture. So as soon as the sun sets, you hear them deep.
Wow.
But yeah, in San Juan, I heard someone told me that they have they put speakers in areas of San Juan and they play coqui because there's not enough coqui because people want to hear that.
Yeah.
So if you're in San Juan walking around the urban part of the city and you hear El Coqui, it might be a recording.
Wow.
It might not be real.
It might not. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, I've never been to Puerto Rico. My husband's born in Caguas.
I know it very well.
Yes, and
it's where the Costco is. This the only Costco in that part of the island. Yeah. So if you need to go to Costco, you got to go to Caguas.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And my husband's family still live there. But it was just pretty much like he told me, it was his mom, his sister, and him coming from Puerto Rico to Southgate, California. And it was new for him,
How old was he when he came?
Oh, he said he was probably 12 or 13 years old. Yeah. And it's just interesting to hear his journey, coming from Puerto Rico to California and, growing up the rest, over here on this side of town. So for me, I think when I talk to my kids, like one dish I made was, I think if I'm saying it correct, it's called sancocho. It's a soup. And I made that one Christmas just to give him that little nice vibe, And, but I need to learn more how to cook, arroz con dules and the chicken. And then the chicken is always red because it's like a red powder on it.
Yeah.
So I need to learn about that too. So then when you got into high school, how was it, in Cali,
Oh, by the time I hit the 10th grade, okay, again, high school started at the 10th grade when I got to high school. Now it starts at the ninth grade. But yeah, when I got to the 10th grade, man, I was a full-fledged Angelino. I had already been here like 4 or 5 years now, and I have a whole bunch of friends, and I'm living out there in different neighborhoods of LA with everybody else, and I don't think that my accent was that heavy anymore, and I was just blending in, making all kind of friends. Had a whole bunch of black friends, had a whole bunch of Mexican friends, and then I started learning about this culture I never heard of, El Salvadorans.
Oh, yes,
they were moving in LA in the 1980s. So I met a whole bunch of them, and then I started mingling and hanging out with Belizeans.
Yeah.
So LA. I was enjoying it.
Right? Melting pot, right?
It is a melting pot to a certain degree. But a guy like me, I can navigate all these different spaces, but I'm hanging out with black folks and they're like, oh no, man, we don't hang out with those Mexicans. I'm like, why not? Oh, because, we just get into it. And then I hang out with Mexicans because I have some sort of, I have a cultural identity with any Latino group at all.
Of course.
I love black people. I love Latino people. That's how I grew up. I consider myself Afro-Latino.
Yes.
So I did notice there's a little separation, coming up, but I never let that separation affect me. So I hung out with everyone, hung out with Salvadorans, hung out with Belizeans. Belizeans, for the most part, identify with Black. But when you go into their homes and you meet their parents,
they're
and
speaking Spanish.
some of them are speaking Spanish. They got those heavy English accents because it was a British colony. They're listening to a whole different kind of music. So yeah, I mean, I was enjoying myself when I got to high school.
Wow. So when you graduated high school, what was your dream job or goal, going into your adulthood? Like, did you go to college? Did you go to a trade school? Way before the thought of gang researcher. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't do that well in high school. I don't know what my problem was in school, but I ended up with a 1.9 GPA, and I was ineligible to graduate.
Oh, wow.
And my father didn't really push me. I was living with my father. He didn't really push me to like excel. So it was okay if I had a bad report card. Most of us supposed to get in trouble when you bring a bad report card home. My pops was just like, hey, it is what it is. Just try your best, which is one of my regrets. I wish he pushed me harder. So for like the next 4 years of my life, I didn't really do anything after graduating. I was trying to play sports, but I wasn't good enough. I tried to get a job. And when I graduated in the late 80s, there was a huge economic recession in Los Angeles in 1989. So it was hard to find a job. So all I was doing was waking up every day. I had a car that I would always have to fix. So I was like a mechanic every day, working on my car, fixing my car. I remember my dad saying, hey, you should go get a job in a mechanic shop. You're really good with engines and transmissions. And I said, nah, I don't want to do this for a living at all. So for the next 3 years, I was just hanging out. Yeah. After high school.
Wow. Okay. So obviously you're in Cali. So in the 90s, we had our, gang truce. We call them West Side parties, Did you ever experience that era?
You're talking about which truce you're talking about, the 92 truce?
Yes.
Yeah. By 92, I'm already in college. I'm a freshman in college by 92. But yeah, I remember that era very well. I mean, I remember the uprising, the whole
riot.
Yeah, April. We're about to have the anniversary of it. What year anniversary? That would be like the 30th anniversary. Yeah, it's going to be 30 years. April 29th will be 30 years. So it's around that same time you're talking about, 92, 93. Actually, during the riots of 92 was my first year in college. So I was trying to balance that, and I actually took a camera and photographed a lot of the riots, and I actually had a photograph that I shot published in a book. So right around that time is when I'm starting to try to take my life more serious.
Okay. I get it now, because I was trying to find like the intro of that, like how did you get to Streetgangs.com? Because I remember when we were doing gang intervention, and I don't know if it was Stop the Violence in Inglewood with Khalid Shaw or if it was Aztec Rising with Enrique, but I knew that somebody introduced me to the website. And then I'm like, whoa, this is information, we don't, not saying it's a luxury for us, as like, the gang stuff. But for me, in my personal opinion, I feel like it's a luxury, because when people talk about gangs, it was very secretive, you know what I mean? Sometimes people that jumped in neighborhoods didn't even know the history of their gangs, So when I start seeing the streetgangs.com and a little bit of the history, you're educating, because I truly tripped out on the, if I'm correct, I'm not sure if it was Diamond Street, but they were saying that they were Irish and this and that before the Latinos. And I'm like, what the heck? I was blown away about that. Diamond
Street is like, that barrio is like 100 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tripped out on that too. But yeah, I got fascinated with not just the history, but also the geography of the gangs. And that's how I initially created the website. It was an assignment. It was a college assignment. That's all it was. It was a college assignment. It wasn't even streetgangs.com. It was on a USC server. And I created all of the information there. And then 3 years later, I transferred it to its own domain name. So even though StreetGangs.com became a website in 98, it really was created 3 years before that as an assignment on a university server. So yeah, I just started getting fascinated. Actually, one of the things that inspired me, I was reading the LA Weekly, and there was an author named Leon Bing that used to write gang articles. So I would read these articles, and I was like, wow, it was a female, but her name was Leon. Mm-hmm. And at the time I didn't know. I thought Leon Bing was a dude.
Yeah.
But she would write these fascinating articles about Raymond Washington, the Crips, the Hoovers. And I was like, wow. And I remember 1988 LA Weekly, they did a nice article, and I clipped it out and I saved it. So I always had that on my dresser. So that's 88. And then when I get to SC, in 93, 93 is when I really start saying, hey, I want to research gangs. And this is before the website. Mm-hmm. The website doesn't come until 95, but in 93 is when I wanted to research gangs. And I think it was a student told me, I was just talking to another student at USC about some gangs. We were just sitting there eating lunch. And he's like, hey, do you take Malcolm Klein's class? I was like, nah. Malcolm Klein had a class at USC about gangs. Mm-hmm. I was like, nah, there's a gang class at USC? That's crazy. Yeah. So I immediately looked it up and went to him. And then I find out Professor James Diego Vigil in anthropology department also teaches a gang class. So there were these two professors teaching gang classes. Malcolm Klein was in sociology. James Diego Vigil was in anthropology. I had already had my schedule of classes, so I couldn't take the classes, but I spent more time going to these classes and meeting these two professors who ended up becoming very good friends of mine over the years. I ended up working for both of them years later, but that was fascinating to me that, hey, this gang stuff is being taught and researched on a university level. Boom. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was part of it as well.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So then what made you transition from just the website to starting filming? Because remember, it was no film, no videos yet. So that was very, very intriguing, because a lot of people says, oh, well, I don't want to be on film and this and that. It's not even about exposing, our truth of the neighborhoods, but more of a biography. Like I tell people, I prefer to tell my story than for somebody else to tell it. I prefer to tell my story, That's what I tell everybody. You want someone else to tell your story? But during the 1992 unrest, I really enjoyed taking the pictures of everything, taking pictures of people, taking pictures of burnt buildings, taking pictures of people looting. Mm-hmm. But I was saying to myself, man, I wish I had a camcorder. I wish I had a video recorder. Those images to me would be more powerful. So after the riots was over, I had asked my girlfriend at the time, who had more money than I did, I was like, yo, can you buy me a camcorder? And I was looking through the newspaper ads. Circuit City sold electronics here in LA. You remember Circuit City? Yeah, I remember. Okay. Now it's Fry's, I think.
Yes, all the Circuit Cities are gone. But I had clipped out some of these camcorders, and I said, hey, you can just buy me any one of these. I don't care. They were like $400 at the time. So she was like, I'll think about it. But for whatever reason, she didn't buy it for me. But I said, I need to get a camcorder. Mm-hmm. That was my goal after the 92 unrest. And eventually I got a camcorder like around 95. I mean, dang, it took me like 3 years to get a camcorder, but that's how poor I was at the time. So around 95, I used to go to where the neighborhood I grew up, I'm saying, hey, let me record people that I know. Yeah. And I lived in an area that was shared between the Rolling 20s Bloods and the Harpies. Mm-hmm. And I would just go up to them and say, hey, Danny, you want to say something? Get that camera out my face, Alex, before I beat your ass.
Yeah.
Oh, man, why you tripping, man? I just want to get a little footage. Why? And I remember everyone complaining, why do you want to take footage of me, Alex? I don't understand what you're doing. Are you going to give this to the police? Are you trying to? I'm like, nah, dude, I just want to document your life. I feel like what you're doing and how you're living is important for people to see. Mm-hmm. This is 95, 96, 97. We call that content today. Yeah. It's content. But back then I was always getting resistance.
Yeah.
But eventually, someone will say, all right, go ahead, Alex, what you want to know? So, but the problem was when I was shooting in 95, 96, 97, 98, I really didn't know what I was doing with these cameras. I was shaking it too much. The audio's bad. The quality's terrible. But that was the beginning of me learning this craft and getting good at it.
Yes. And here you are today, like advanced. You know what I mean? Advanced. So, when you're filming, different people, I know you probably have a lot of favorites, but which one is memorable? Like one of your memorable interviews where you're like, man, that one is, that goes into the books,
Well, I think that some of my, I can only really speak on some of the recent ones I've done. There's a young brother named Jay Stone from Fruittown, Piru in Compton that told an incredible story of getting shot in the neck at point blank range by a rival Crip, falling to the ground, bleeding profusely, dying, according to what he said. He died right there on the pavement, sat in a coma for a month, but during his life after death experience, he told these stories of what he was experiencing in his head as he was dying. And I've been a long fan of Art Bell, who used to have a radio show, rest in peace, Art Bell, and then it got taken over by George Norrie, and they talk about life after death on this radio show. And when Jay Stone was telling me the story, it just reminded me of all the people who used to call into the radio show. It's Art Bell, now it's George Norrie. And it made me realize that this is a real thing that people go through when they're on the verge of death or dying, and what goes through, what happens in their mind. And his story of what he experienced dying was incredible. So I put that interview up, and I wasn't the only one that felt like that. People just loved it.
So what was his spiritual awakening? Like, during the coma, like what did he see or what did he hear?
Well, the first thing he experienced was some people he didn't know came up to him and said, "We know who killed you, Jay Stone. Let's go find them." So these guys come and they say, "Hey, there he goes over there." And he said, they give him a gun. And he said, "There he goes. Go kill the guy who just killed you." Yeah. But he can't do it. He's trying, but he can't get the gun up. So he goes through that a couple times. And then he goes through a situation where they take him to his auntie. And he's thinking, "Oh, wow, my auntie's here," because the guys are mad at him for not trying to kill the people who killed him. Yes. He's like, "Oh, my auntie, I'm sure you'll understand." He says auntie was mad at him for not doing his thing. So he tells all these stories about having to address the people who killed him in his life after death experience, which was fascinating. And then eventually he ends up, he says that he felt that was hell, and then he eventually ends up in a better place. And he reflected, saying that he thinks that whole experience was God telling him he needs to change his life.
Yes.
So that's one interview that really stood with me. So that's an interview I did about 3 or 4 years ago. So I just revisited an interview with him again, and he just tells incredible stories. Jay Stone from Fruittown, and his stories are so incredible that I had decided to do a podcast with him.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, young brother from Compton, grew up in Fruittown, Piru. He's an incredible talent. He's a singer, he's a songwriter, he's a rapper, and he's an incredible orator.
Wow, that's powerful. And I love hearing that, because I'm a very spiritual person. A lot of people say, well, spiritual means what, like witchcraft and cards? I'm like, no, spiritual just means that you believe in another like a, how could I say this? Like, we live on the earth, right? And we're physical form. But then there's a spiritual world on the other side that we supposedly experience when we cross over, when we die from, the world, right? And when I believe if I was 5 or 6, I start seeing dead people as a child. So I experience, and, the spiritual world where you can see people differently than a normal person will see them. So sometimes, like, I'll shake a person's hand, and then it would be revealed, not good things, you know, and then like my face will show because this face, even if I try to like be normal, I can't because I'm one of those, I don't have a poker face, you know? And so, you know, when people look at my eyes and my face, they're like, well, damn, like, wow. But I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And I pull back because I was like, ew, what I just saw was like disgusting, you know? And so it's an interesting journey, especially when I talk about my experience, and I call it the spiritual awakening, where, you know, my homeboy put the gun to my head and I went through a spiritual awakening. I thought I was dead because I was falling down this black tunnel. And I always tell people, like, when you experience trauma, it's whatever your purgatory is, whatever your hell is, whatever your heaven is what you see. So you might be Buddhist, I might be Catholic. So you might see, you know, a Buddha up in your world and I'll see the Virgin Mary. You know what I mean? Like everybody has a different experience. And I just remember 2 times in my life spiritually. The first time in 97 when I almost experienced death was the Virgin Mary hands and her turquoise cloth. And then another time in Watts when the truck was shot up and I got shot, but didn't know I was shot until after the fact. You know what I mean? Because it was so much trauma going on, you know, and we crashed into a church, and it was the Virgin Mary where I woke up to, you know, looking at her like, man, me and the Virgin Mary, we got a connection. I don't know, but every time I'm going through something bad, she's there, whether it's spiritually or, you know, physically looking at something. And so, yeah, I love hearing things like that. I love ghost stories. I just love things like that. I don't know.
You never listened to George Norrie radio show?
No.
Oh, okay. You would like some of the...
I'm gonna have to Google him and check him out because I like things like that. Yeah. Like even my kids told me, Mommy, you know, the church says you're not supposed to watch scary movies. And I said, I know. I said, but Mommy, you've experienced stuff like this. So to me, it doesn't scare me. You know, I just learn things from different people's stories, you know, so then I'm prepared, you know, when you move into a new house or something like that, how do you bless your house? Things of that nature. Yeah. So that, you know, like I tell people, the spiritual world is real and it intertwines with the physical world. So I love hearing stories like that. And so, you know, how was it, you know, during COVID for you?
You know, COVID wasn't that bad for me because I anticipate that every decade there's going to be some sort of economic economic downturn that we're going to have to experience. Because I went through the 2007, 2008 recession, and it really hit me hard. Yeah. I lost everything.
Me too.
I lost multiple properties. Exactly.
People even done me dirty. I'm giving them money, $2,000. They trying to do loan modification. They run off with my money. I'm like, what the heck?
Okay, so see, that was a lesson to me because I was just starting my family in 2007. I got married in 2000, had my kids in 2001, 3, and 4. So by the time 2007, 2008 comes, my kids are all like 3, 4, 5 years old.
Yes.
And I went through this, you know, severe economic downturn where I lost everything. And I said to myself, never again. Never again. So I told my kids, like, this COVID thing ain't going to do anything. So we did all kinds of things. I bought a house during COVID.
Yes.
You know, we went on trips during COVID. So I prepared myself. Yeah. And I learned my lessons from 2007 and 2008. So yeah, never again. So, you know, I pray for all those that did suffer, that did pass. I lost 3 good friends. I know people who've lost 5, 10, 11. But I lost Gregory Everett, who was a filmmaker here in LA. I lost my man Spider from Inglewood. And I lost Kilroy, Ernest Roy Bell, former Mexican mafia leader. He passed. Those are 3 guys. Due to COVID, yeah. I know. And I know there's people out there that lost many more.
Like Ever from Playboys, yeah. Ever Linares, he was a gang interventionist as well in LA, and he passed away. He was the first person that I knew from Grid that passed because of COVID. So it was, you know, it was crazy because during COVID, me and my family, we never been affected by it. We never got COVID. We never experienced that, you know. So we were popping businesses during COVID because it's like you're just sitting there, you know. It was crazy though in the beginning because people were scared to go travel because it was so much things going on, I should have been like you and been like, let's go travel. Let's go to Texas, Louisiana, visit some family, But I think what it was I was a bit scared because they were saying traveling. You don't want to travel because COVID and, things of that nature. But I'm happy to hear that, you were doing good during COVID,
Yeah, but it took lessons from '08.
Yes.
That sometimes I just thinking about '07, '08 and how much I lost. It's depressing still.
Yeah.
Even though that was 15, how many years ago that? More than 15, 16 years ago.
You see your credit score go from here to boop, and you're like, oh my God. And then like, they were like, your foreclosures are going to be on your credit score for, I think, 9 years or something. And the short sales that I did and
you sound like mine. I did short sales.
4 years on your credit. Then the IRS was like, you owe us $10,000 for your Marina Del Rey property and back taxes. And oh my God. Yeah. So definitely I understand the depression.
And your kids you had kids at the time?
No, I didn't.
See, I was so stressed out about it because I'm like, dang, I got 3 little kids too that I got to take care of.
Which is more stressful.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, but more stressful when you have a family,
My dad always told me, never stress about money. Never stress about money.
Like, that year I was.
But it doesn't work. I mean, how do you not stress about money?
Yes.
Because my dad would have the rent due. He's like, I don't got it. What are they going to do? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
They get it when I got it.
Yeah.
But I was stressed out with the 3 kids during that time. But I was able to, pretty much do well.
Yes.
I feel like that you got to learn lessons, especially about money, especially coming from the communities we come from. We're not educated or taught about investing, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all of that stuff. You got to learn that on your own because our parents, at least the people that I grew up with, our parents didn't know this stuff.
Yeah, half of people don't have life insurance, don't even know what an index universal life insurance is. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's different types of life insurance. There's term life.
Permanent.
Yeah, so, I made sure that I got on top of my game after that recession. And, I did fine. I did fine. But we prayed for everyone that wasn't doing fine. But, yeah.
Wow. Well, how can my viewers find you on social media? And also, after you say that, we're closing with what is new? What's coming new?
Okay. Well, you can find me at StreetTV. That's the platform name now for all the video content. Okay. I know everyone knows me from Street Gangs, but I did a brand change. Well, I didn't change it. I just added another platform. So StreetTV is where you can find me. And then on all the social media platforms, Alex Alonso 101, ALEX, ALONSO 101 at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. And then I would say look out for me on a new episode of, what's the name of this show? On Reels TV called Trafficked. There's an episode about gang culture being exported from Los Angeles into Belize. So there was an episode on Trafficked about that you could check me out on. And then there's also an episode of America's Most Evil about Griselda Blanco and her hitman. I'm on that show as well. So those 2 shows coming up that you can check me out on. And of course, don't forget to visit StreetTV. I'm always dropping new content, new interviews.
So that'll be on YouTube, right?
That's on YouTube, StreetTV.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for educating our viewers about your story. Definitely educated them, right?
I hope so.
Taught them awareness, you know what I mean? So very inspiring for me, at least. And so I'm really excited to have, Alex in the building. And for me, I would say www.streetgangs.com.
Yeah, that's still there.
Until then, I'm just so excited, to have you in the building for a part 2 interview. And all right, viewers, I hope you have a blessed day. Until then, see you next week.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.